So there's a telltale sign in the San Diego real estate market that the housing inventory will continue to rise in 2025. We're going to jump into a number that Realtor.com has been tracking since 2016, and it has been at the lowest level since they started tracking this number. But we're going to dive into national, show you what's going on there, and then break it down and show you what's going on right here in San Diego. And at the end, we're going to get into what that actually means for buyers and sellers. So let's get into it right now. So starting on the national level, U.S. housing inventory for sale fell by 42,000 homes in December of 2025 and going into January of 2025. So from December till January, we saw a dip, which is pretty typical during that time of year. But historically, the national active inventory usually declines an average of about 70,000 between December and January during that same time frame. So we were below that, meaning the total active inventory from December to January fell the smallest amount that they have seen in quite some time. And so the fact that the inventory is rising year over year, combined with the January's smallest inventory decline for the month since Realtor.com began publishing this in 2016, strongly suggests that the national active housing inventory for sale is likely to end the year higher. And so here is the month over month change in total active housing inventory going from month to month. So right here at the far end, this is January of 2025. This is that 42,000 number. You can see it's the lowest number we've seen across the board. And it's typical what will happen. You'll see from December to January, the active total inventory will drop during that time. And then we'll start to see a rise as we're coming into the main selling months. Some years were a little bit less, obviously in 2020, but every year we have seen that come back up after January. So we're going to expect that to continue going up. But what does that mean for San Diego? Now for San Diego, you can see 154 has been the lowest. We had the second lowest right here in January of 2022. As far as the month over month change in total active housing inventory for sale right here in San Diego. So how many homes, what was the difference in active inventory between December and January? And you can see, just go to the second lowest right here. And what happened? You did see a bump up going into the next few months of the year, a really big jump in inventory. Now we saw a little bit going into February, but as you go into March, April, May, June, July, you can see that number did bounce up quite significantly. Now we're going to see this number jump up for sure, because typically during this time of year, you're going to see more homes come on the market. So how many more homes is the question. So we're going to see big month over month gains like we did in January of 2022. Now that was a little bit different time. During this time is when interest rates were super low at the beginning of the year. They did start to jump up as we got into those summer months. So a lot of folks were kind of sellers, were jumping into the market, put their home on the market. And then you can see the second part of the year, we saw pretty big declines over the next few months as far as number of homes. There was less sellers, there was less buyers during this time. So are we going to see something like that? Are we going to see something kind of like we did normally in January of last year? Or are we going to go back to a similar time in January of 2018 where we saw monthly gains pretty much for the entire year until the last 3 months of the year? And so heading in the year, the average forecast model tracked by Resi Club, that's these guys who put out this article, projected U.S. active inventory for sale to increase by 12.5% in 2025. Through the end of January, active inventory is growing at a rate of 25% on a year-over-year basis. So as we're looking at this chart here, year-over-year inventory gains. This is for all of the United States, so it's a little bit different. We will show you where San Diego does fall on this next, but you can see right here. Okay, so looking at the end of this chart right here, there's 11% more new listings coming on the market compared to last year. There's 25% active listings. So active is the homes that are already on the market plus the new homes coming on the market. And as we're looking here, most of last year, we did see year-over-year gains. So inventory has been building up for that past year. There's been more homes coming on the market compared to the previous year. Now this big bump right here, this is that 2022 bump when we did see active listings jump significantly as interest rates did rise, and then they came back down towards the latter part of the year. But historically speaking, the national active inventory usually begins its seasonal decline around August, similar to San Diego, and then it begins to rise again around March. So where are we in San Diego? Here's the active housing inventory for sale month by month, just going all the way back through 2017. And just look at some of these years right here where we did see 2024 was better than 2023. But look at this 2022 number. There was only 377,000 listings on the market in all the United States during this time. This is when we saw some of that craziness. So as far as the national levels, we are trending in the right direction right here, but we're not necessarily to the levels that we have been in the pre-pandemic levels, where most Januaries were at or near that million listing mark. So January 2020 was the first one in a few years where we had seen under a million mark. Now jumping into the San Diego numbers. So the active housing inventory for sale by month. Now, you're typically going to see a pattern. January is going to be the lowest. You're going to see that jump up. 2023 was kind of weird, where we didn't see a jump up till towards the end of the year. It was just kind of like more of a sideways year. But as most years during going towards that typical buying season, you are going to see the active inventory rise. So we're going to expect that again as we go into this. And since our starting point is much higher than last year, when we did see last year, we were sitting at 2,452 homes in January. This year we have 3,544 homes. Actually comparing the 2023, 2022, 2021, the last time we saw it above this number was January of 2020. So we're trending in the right direction. Even during that time, as far as the market goes, it wasn't necessarily a heavy buyer's market, but we did see a little bit more of a buyer's market as you get inventory levels kind of during that pre-pandemic time, where we start tracking up to this amount. When we cross that 4,000 going into the 6,000 range and above, that's when we do start seeing a little bit more softening in the market. Now, like I said, 17, 18, 19, there's still competition on homes. Home prices were still rising here in San Diego, but it's definitely a different story than we did see a few years ago. And if you guys are thinking about buying a home right here in San Diego and you want to know the process, you want to figure out, just what the buying process is even like, what it all entails, what is earnest money, what are inspections, what inspections are we doing right here in San Diego, kind of what are some lending terms, what are some lending things you might need to know, go ahead and check out the free guide that's popping up right now. It's going to give you our entire buying process from start to finish and let you know exactly what you need to know if you're buying a home right here in San Diego. So get that downloaded, but let's jump back into the video. And this is important to know. So while the national active inventory is rising 25% on a year-over-year basis, the shift varies a lot across the country. And as always, what's happening in specific markets within locally too, even breaking down San Diego into different cities, different zip codes, different neighborhoods, depending on what's happening in the inventory in those specific neighborhoods, can definitely dictate what's happening in the market as a whole. Are we seeing price growth? Are we seeing multiple offers? Are we seeing homes sit a little bit longer? So it's important to know what's going on in your neck of the woods. But as we jump into this chart, the 1 year change in active inventory for sale. Now, a lot of times too, we call out 2019 as the pre-pandemic years, which this next chart will show us a little bit too, where we are off of that. But you can see here, just even going to 2017, 2018, 2020, pre-pandemic, all those were right in the 4,200, 4,500 range. There was somewhat of an anomaly in 2019. Now, we were in the market during that time. Interest rates were changing a little bit, but there was definitely a significant bump compared to other years right here in San Diego. So other areas within California where we have Orange County had a 46.4% jump. LA had just shy of a 30% jump in inventory. As we get up into some of the Bay Area, you had Contra Costa, which had 46%. You had Solano, 40%. Alameda at 31%. But you can see it varies across the country. And while the national active inventory at the end of 2025 nationally was 830,000. It was still 25% below pre-pandemic levels of January of 2019. So we'll jump in here and show you real quick active housing inventory for sale. So we're comparing 2019 to 2025. Are we at that level yet where we did see a lot more inventory? We saw a little bit more of a healthy market. Let's see where we did compare right here in San Diego. So the shift, we are actually still down 44%. So January last year, January this year, we're up over 44%. This year, 2019 compared to 2025, we're actually down 44%. And so that's going against this bigger number in 2019. If we go down to, let's say, January of 2018 compared to January of 2025, it's about an 18% difference. So we are tracking in the right direction as far as the number of homes going onto the market here in San Diego. And so what does that mean for buyers and sellers right here in San Diego? As inventory rises, obviously buyers are going to have more options. There's going to be less competition, especially if there's just less competition as a whole because interest rates are higher. It's a little less affordable than it has been in years past. So buyers, there's going to be opportunities as more homes come on the market, especially within the same neighborhood. You're going to have choices. So even with clients that we are working with, we're not in that frenzied mindset where we have to get in there that first weekend. We have to make offers that first weekend if you did want to potentially own that home. There's a little bit of breathing room for buyers. Now, time is always of the essence. There are homes, I was just looking at the hot sheet today, what homes came on, what homes went off, what homes sold. A lot of the homes that went pending were on the market for 4 days, 7 days, 12 days. And some of the ones that had sold were at list, some were a little bit above list, some were significantly above list, some were a little bit at or below. So there's a wide variety of things happening in specific markets. We even had clients that we were going to look at a home. It had been on the market for about 89 days. It was originally listed a little bit high. There had been 2 price reductions of $100,000. We were gearing up to go see the property, but that day we were trying to set up a showing and it actually went pending that day. So with price reductions, they got back into that zone where it did make sense for buyers to come in there and get their home sold. So on the seller front, pricing is going to be super important going into 2025 as we continue down this lane. As always, it's always important, but also getting the home dialed in. Are we putting any work into the home? Do we want to put it on? But either way, pricing it accordingly. If you guys are selling your home, obviously you're in charge. You're going to be setting the price. We're just giving you our best opinion and letting you know what we think it could potentially sell for on the market. But as sellers too, as there's more competition, just potentially longer days on market, depending on neighborhoods, on price point, on condition, on location, on all of those factors. So a few things to consider as well for sellers. And if you guys are thinking about making a move, you have some questions and you want to get that conversation started, all of our contact info is right below. Feel free to reach out because we got your back when making the move here in San Diego.